Hello, it's Tamara Hunter, and today is July the 5th, 2020. This is the Service Hero Show 365 Days of Awesome. Celebrate success through service. We tell the inspiring stories of those that are, are inspiring others. So let's do this. Hello again. We have our service hero for July the 5th, 2020. Meet Damon K. Ross. Damon actually was one of the next impactor candidates, one of those that was competing against time. We didn't compete against each other. No, that's not what the program was. It was all about having a purpose, having a passion, being driven to make a difference in this world, and competing against time because we actually were in teams. We joined together. We learned how to work together and to support each other. And I loved that program. Love it still. And I got to watch Damon and what he was doing. We were on different teams. How yet we got to support each other's teams and what they were doing. And I have to say that Damon is his focus and his passion and his purpose actually is something that is personal to me. And so on this Independence Day weekend for the United States, I am so thrilled and honored to share once again, because we were just in a magazine together, once again, sharing a forum with this amazing service hero. So welcome today, Damon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It is
It's
it is a good honor to be on a show with a fellow impactor, fellow top 50 impactor. So this is fun.
I love that word, fun. I agree. And in fact, I want to recognize, of course, I have my buddies. That's what platform I ran on, Chemo Buddies for Life. And many of them will be showing up today. They always do. And one of them is my buddy, Helene Wilson. And she is one of our ambassadors of our chat. And so she will welcome all of the service heroes to the show, but also the Chemo Buddies for Life. And she is welcoming me and you today. I love it. I love it. And it looks as though we have Christopher with us, Christopher Kaysen. Love that you're here with us.
Yes.
One of the top 5 also tonight.
Yes, he's on my team.
Oh, you were teammates. Okay.
Yeah, Team Jason.
You were on Jason's team. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Hey, Chris.
I love, Team Jason. Can't help but just love that. And then after, I got to win the coach, and so then his Mios too. And so we put those into practice too. I love it. And, anybody that needs to know what a Mio is, check out Anton J Global. And so, it's so great to have you here. And tonight, actually, in our closed group, Christopher and Brooke Curran, another one of the next impactors, they share the Sunday night fun night, game night. And we always have so much fun there. Tonight, I believe we're going to be doing some kind of Wheel of Fortune. Yes, hashtag Team Jason. So let's talk. In fact, I'm going to make you larger right now. And so that there we go. You've got the best backdrop. And that says life, right?
Yes. I was scrolling through Amazon one day just looking for a backdrop. And when I saw this, I said, this is perfect because we're all experiencing life. And within the word life, you see all of these words and things that we deal with on a regular basis and things that we have to overcome, things that we're challenged by. And it's just the perfect, summation of what life is.
And so in that life banner behind you, I'm looking, and yes, you see that you suffering to trust, to love, to courage, to friendship, apprehension, greed, obsession, pain, nostalgia. You have you have so many different you know ends of the spectrum, and that really goes into what your message is in so many ways, because you ran in the next impactor because of the fact that you work in an area. You've gone to school, you've coached, you've worked with, you've shared on stages and on your radio show and a variety of places about the fact that we need to be there for our youth, right?
Yes, absolutely. That is a huge mission of mine, is to work and to empower youth. And I do that through working directly with them, but also by empowering the people who work with them. And that's a big part of my mission, is to work with that population to help uh, bring some balance, bring some integrity, bring some passion back to those who are working with our youth, because they're the ones who are there day in and day out, the educators and people that are in youth groups and whatnot. And so if I can help inspire them and help them show up as their best self every day, that will have a long lasting effect on the youth.
And thank you for doing that, because I'll tell you this, that I'm going to grab the magazine cover and a little bit about it that we just shared, because right now, in fact, that's why I am now dating the shows rather than numbering them, because today, July the 5th, 2020, we are still in the midst, and I'm in California, you're in the greater Chicagoland area, and I'm in
Yes, yes,
Southern
yes.
California. So we're in two, if you will, you could say we're in two hot spots for a variety of different reasons. Not necessarily. And I will say, okay, yes, both, it's both ends of the spectrum. It's just like your life banner behind you. You can choose to look at what you want. And in fact,
Absolutely.
your article in the July or June issue of the Global Achievers magazine, which Vicky Omafalaji, she is the founder and editor out of Australia, and one of the top 5 coaches for the next impactor. She looks globally for
Yes.
inspiring stories, for inspiring people, and she was so excited to feature someone that I know, and actually have featured on this show, Carl Wilson out of Southern California also. And she asked you to do an article, and I found it extremely informational, and it's something that people can grab hold of, like, okay, yeah, I can do this, I can get through this. You tell everybody what your article was all about.
Well, the article was about 3 healthy perspectives you can have during times of uncertainty. And I talked with Lauren, like a lot of you know Lauren Michaels Harris. He and I talked about what a good topic would be during this time. And, this just kind of popped into my mind, because there are a lot of people who are struggling right now with how they should react, how they should feel during this specific time. And I thought, well, why not give them something that not only that they can use now, but also in other times? So we can find ourselves facing different types of times of uncertainty during times outside of the pandemic. So this is what I came up with, something that could be really beneficial right now, but also have an effect along the way. And those 3 perspectives that I talk about were: a stressed mind does not serve you, and just talking about how we need to approach things and try to keep ourselves in a calm state of mind, because we make rational decisions and we're able to process information a lot better when we have calm mind. Also understanding that change is the only constant that exists in the universe. And so while things are changing fast, we're getting updates every day, all the time. If we can understand and accept this perspective that change is something that's constant and always happens, then we can find ourselves more prepared when uncertain times come upon us, when we're prepared for that change and know that we must be flexible. And then the last point was be curious, use open-mindedness to be curious, because open-mindedness creates a calm in us. So when you're open-minded about something, you're more relaxed about receiving information. Oftentimes we look at things with a closed mind or with our minds already made up about something, and all that does is that can trigger more uncertainty, more feelings of stress and dysregulation. So why not have an open mind? Why not be curious about a new uncertain time? And then we can process that information.
And you put it in such a way that was really understandable, and yet, makes you think. And I appreciate that. I love in the curious, or towards the end of the article, when you go into Abraham Lincoln's way of looking at taking down a tree, and how many hours it takes to get that axe ready to go, and I always think about that, back in the day, because I'm a student of history. I love to learn about different people and why they did what, all different types of people, quite honestly. And because I want to see what went right, what went wrong, all because we can learn from history. We can learn.
Absolutely.
Because, it's just like putting that article in, how wise and what a good decision it was to put an article in for this time now, yet it's evergreen, because later it will be relevant, just like many of the historical stories and people that we go back and study. We can learn things, and it goes back to that axe. How many hours does it take to prepare to take down a tree, and why did you put that in there?
Well, it's just one of those things where people often, when we get something new or when we see something new, we just want to jump in and we want the results right away. But how much time do we spend preparing for those opportunities? You have to be prepared for an opportunity. And in order for that tree to knock down, all of your tools need to be sharpened. And our brain is our greatest tool. Right. So that's why I talked about spending that time, making sure that we're mentally prepared, making sure we have all of those faculties in order in our brains so that we can tackle and face any situation that we face.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I'm going to switch gears here a bit, because I found this. I love that. You're a service hero, but you're also, Dad, you are my hero. How wonderful is that? And we were talking about this young man before we went live, and how you are encouraging him, and that actually encouraged me, because after this live, I'm going to go. There was a video that you had on your page, and I'm watching. I'm like, oh yes, I need to do that today. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I posted a video yesterday of my son running stairs, and about 2 weeks ago, I decided that I wanted to have my son start working out, because he's been laying around since all of this COVID stuff has been going on. And, we did a little bit of stuff for PE, but not a lot of activity. So he doesn't have PE class, and he doesn't have recess to run and burn off some of his energy and stay in some kind of shape. So I decided we're going to start working out. So what we do is, the mornings where I have him, we go and run. So I'll jog or walk. He will grab his scooter and he rides his scooter. So we do that. And then when we come home, I have him run stairs and then do some push-ups and sit-ups and some other little light workout stuff. And so I posted that video. And so we were talking about that before going live here. And it was just, something I thought about to keep him engaged. And the reason I posted it yesterday is because it was really cool. I have this program that I bought for him to where he watches these videos and does some reading. And so when we got home after our jog, normally I would have him go into the stairs and the other workouts. But today I just said, you know what, go ahead and watch your video. And so once he's done with his video, just out of habit, when he gets done with his video, he'll automatically turn on the television or go to YouTube and start watching something. But instead of doing that, he came and found me. I was up in my room, and he came and said, "Dad, how many push-ups and sit-ups am I supposed to do? And how many stairs do you want me to run?" And I just thought that was really cool that he did that, as opposed to going to his normal sit and, veg out on watching TV. He actually came and asked what's next. And the point of that was just to let parents know that even though you're challenging your kids and you're doing things, or you're giving them things to do that they may not necessarily show the most excitement over, doesn't mean that they're not appreciative of it and that they don't actually get some enjoyment out of it.
And now that, and just think about, you posted that for parents, yet
Yes.
it also, in my personal case, it was like, it reminded me, because I don't necessarily run stairs, but I walk them, and I may go fast, but I'm holding, because I'm a little like, okay, yeah, I want to be careful about this too, be responsible, and we have a lot of buddies that are here, so I'm not saying go run the stairs, guys, be smart about it, hold on, don't, we want to be healthy, and
Right.
yeah, because it just depends on your age and your health and everything like this. However, I'm thinking, here you did this for parents and kids, and here's a nana that was inspired, and that's the way that this works out there, and that's what I love about sharing inspiring stories about people, because you're inspiring others. And look, at you think that this is your target, that's your avatar, yet you were inspiring others that possibly you had no clue you were going to
Yeah.
be inspiring. And that's the way it works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You never do know who's listening and who's out there. I would remember a couple of years ago, I had a string of days where I was putting posts out, and then I had a buddy of mine, a guy who I went to high school with, gave me a call, and he was trying to hook me up with something to cover for him he actually accidentally double booked himself, and so he was calling me to see if I can cover for him somewhere. And in the midst of that, he said, "Man, I got to tell you, man, those posts you've been putting the last few days, man, they've been really, really hitting right where I need them, man. I really appreciate it." So you just never know who's going to be inspired by whatever you're sharing. So, anybody out there that's striving to be an influencer, or, just want to help other people, don't be afraid to post things, say things that are on your heart, because you never know who you're going to touch.
Exactly. Now I'm going to ask you, because we are in two different areas that have been really affected by so many different things. I mean, and I will say affected by the COVID, shutdowns, and
Yes.
maybe being released and then possibly not, and numbers going up, and on and on and on, and the change that has taken place because of all of this. I know that, because of talking with Brooke, that lives there in Chicago, in the Chicago city area, and others that do also, there's been a lot of, I mean, I even noticed a show that they were going to be talking about what has been happening during COVID in Chicago, and how then some of the unrest that's been taking place too, where you've got a double whammy going on in your area, where in my area, we've had some of the same thing going on. We've had, in fact, my county is one of those counties within California now that's being said that we're at the highest numbers, and we're at that alert time that we may have to go back, and they closed down certain services that they had opened up again. They've now shut them down because of worries of this and that. Not to get into the political piece of it, but to get into it as a father, to get into it in that you live in this greater Chicagoland area, and you are an influencer, and you work with those that are working with our youth that already are struggling because of possible fear and anxiety and anxiousness, and maybe they're not quite understanding things, the noise, the news, the all in all, there is so much. You come from a place, your education, your background, your training, and you already are out there influencing in this arena. What do you want to share uh, right now? I know that you shared this article, and this, it was great, but this is another forum. There's a lot of people that are off this weekend. They're saying, hey, we didn't get to go to our 4th of July, hometown parade. We didn't get to see that person with the little wagon that always has the dog that has,
Right.
little flag holding this and doing that, and some of the traditional things we're used to. It's kind of upside down. It's topsy turvy. How do you navigate this in the very best way? What are your thoughts? What's your advice for us?
The only thing that I do is I just focus on controlling what I can control. And there's a lot going on, as you said, a lot in the United States and a lot of our cities. Now, I'm pretty far away from the city of Chicago, so a lot of the unrest and things that are going on, I haven't seen. But I just focus on what I can control. I focus on my time with my son, making sure that he's safe and he feels safe and he understands what's going on. So I have conversations with him, ask him what his fears are, what kind of questions he has, and let him know that whatever it is, I'm open. But let's say just focus on what you can control and focus on your family and staying together with your loved ones, and just take advantage of this time because there will be a day. I'm remaining hopeful that there will be a day soon
Mm-hmm.
where we'll be able to. It may not look the same, but where we'll be able to move on and do the things that we were doing before, and we can easily get ourselves caught up in the hustle and bustle of life and get those connections that we're building now, fragmented. So I say really focus on that. Focus on your family and making sure that you guys are together. You guys continue those strong bonds so that whatever comes ahead, that you're locked in arms with those around that you love, so we can move forward and educate yourselves. Educate yourselves on what's going on, what's actually happening, because as you said, there's a lot of information going around about what is and what isn't. I would say look at everything.
Uh-huh.
Don't look at one thing. I think where a lot of people get caught up and it gets really dangerous is when people only look at the things that are already aligned with what they believe, and we don't get a full scope of what's going on, because just because you have your mind made up about something doesn't mean you're necessarily right, or what you believe is necessarily right. And I think we often get caught up in a situation where we believe that our reality is the reality, and that's
Uh-huh.
not the case. So just learn to be open-minded, look at all sides, and figure out what the truth is, and then make sure that you're doing whatever you need to do in accordance to the information that you have.
That's good. And your degree is in psychology. So I
Yes.
mean, you're coming from a place, and that's really why I wanted to hear from you here. You're, very active as a father. Congratulations on being a really great example for that. That's another service hero trait. I mean, truly, we need more dads involved in their kids' lives. We just absolutely do. And I'm talking generationally, this has been going on. It's nothing new, guys. Nothing new. I mean,
Yeah.
I know because I was raised primarily by a single mother. She was both mom and dad, for me. And so it's not like, you know, and yes, guys, wink wink. I am a nana. So this is nothing new. Yes, it's been going on for decades, for generations. And if we can really get our parents, if they are in a healthy place, again, make sure to put that in there. And if we don't have the parents, those mentors, those people, those
Yes.
educators, those people that feel called to work with our youth, we can engage them in ways. And then I love what you shared, just sit down and talk. Age appropriate, right? That
Yes.
is such an important piece. Explain that for those that may not understand what that means.
Well, it's just there's certain information that your children just aren't able to process if they are at a certain age. So answer the questions that they're asking in a way that they will be able to understand it, and information that will not be an overload to them. So, you know, if my son's 10 years old, he's in fifth grade, and there's certain things that he asks me that sometimes I have to really think like, okay, how do I, because this is complicated. Some of this stuff is really complicated, but how do I present it to him in a way that he understands it and doesn't become overwhelmed with it and, you know, terrified of some of the answers that you can give him.
Right. You know, and thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure that there are a lot of people. I mean, and I want to recognize we have HOD radio and TV out of Nigeria that streams us live, and we have others that are watching from all over the world, either now in live or in replay. We have a lot of people from Bangladesh and India and Australia, of course, throughout the United States, Canada. I want to recognize all of them. Welcome to the show. It's an international show for sure. And so we've got people from all sorts of different, countries, different cultures, different belief systems. Yet this is universal. This is something that people of all, wherever you may be, wherever whatever you may be dealing with, one thing that many of us are all in, it's an interesting time in our world in that we are all in it together. I mean, that is the hashtag, in it together. You can take it in whatever context you want. I'm using it in the fact that I'm seeing it that we are a global family. I am the first global impactor. You were one of the top 50 impactors. We are global. We are impacting globally together. You were just featured in the Global Achievers magazine. This is a global issue. And so to be able to say, from someone that's been educated in our education system at Columbia College with a psychology degree, and sitting there with a banner that is so beautiful and that says life behind you, that, you know, I remember when we went through 9/11, and my kids were about the kids that were the age of your son right now. And we got that letter from the school saying, okay, sit with each one of your kids, talk to them about age appropriate. And at that time, I had 2 in elementary school, 1 in junior high, and 1 finishing high school. And so I had like the spectrum of almost kindergarten to high school. I'm thinking age appropriate, each child. Okay, sit down individually, figure it out. Okay, and it was an interesting education for myself in that it wasn't even just age appropriate. It was their I don't want to say gender so much, but they're coming from their own personality too. So it's, and the fact that you work with the youth that have different kinds of struggles, or you work with the, if you will, the adults that work with them. And as I was sharing, thank you for that, because my kids, I have some that have, they're doing great. They're functioning, wonderful adults. Yet we had to work through with our toolboxes and teams of everything from severe learning issues to behavioral or emotional, things that they were born with that we needed to help them to understand, be able to recognize, and to be able to then, with education and proper, teams, be able to learn how to cope and have a successful life, because they're all poster children now, adults, of what can definitely happen. But you've got to put that energy into it. And so that's why I'm really spending some time right here, right now, because I believe that there's people all over the place that are saying, okay, Demon, I'm in it right now, and I'm struggling because I've got behavioral issues taking place. There's crying that's taking place. There's depression. There's, possibly bedwetting or whatever it may be. Any of these outward symptoms of I'm overwhelmed and I'm scared. I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to help my kids. And so an adult that is possibly like that, what would you say would be a good thing for them if they're not quite yet ready to have that discussion and they need to get themselves in a good place?
That's a great question there. What I would recommend is, reaching out, finding somebody else who can help you as you sort through your emotions, and if possible, bring someone else in to help you have that conversation. And that's the great thing that you talked about is how we are, globally we are connected. Through the internet, we're connected. We're all one, and we have to all work together to combat all of the social ills that are going on. We have to all do this together.
Right.
And so with that, it's okay to reach out for help. I mean, there's no shame in that because most of us, what are the things that we teach our kids? Hey, son, daughter, when you're in trouble, come talk to me, reach out to me. And what better example could you be than to say, hey, you know what, kids, I'm really struggling with this too. I'm right there with you. So I'm going to have somebody come in and talk with all of us and help us all process this together. I think that would be a fantastic place to start. And then for those of you who are a little bit better place where you can talk, the most simple thing to do, and a lot of people like, oh, man, it's got to be more complicated than that, but it's not. Listen, just sit and listen. Let them talk, because your kids will share with you what's going on if you listen long enough and listen with the intention of understanding what they're going through. Too many times, and you see it all over social media, people are listening, waiting for their chance to respond, to get off what they have to say, and nobody's listening. So that's why there's not a lot of understanding. But you want to help your kids the most, and whether it's during this time or any time, listen. Sit back and listen for understanding, because once they feel understood, then that's the time where you can offer your suggestions, feedback, or whatever it is you need to give.
I love that. I love that. Now you have pictures of you and your mom, and then you and your mom and your son on your pages. And um, let's talk about this family nucleus and everything. What kind of example was your mom to you?
Oh, my mom was a huge example. She's the reason that I love working with kids. So I actually grew up in the St. Louis area, so I'm not originally from the Chicagoland area. So these pictures are from when my parents came up to visit for my mom's birthday back at the beginning of March. So this was like 2 weeks before everything started being shut down for COVID. So my parents came to visit, but my mom, she was always an educator. She worked for the St. Louis City Public School District. We lived out in the suburbs, so we were on different schedules as far as the school systems went. So my mom, when she was coaching, when she was teaching kindergarten, I was in second grade. My earliest remembrance, I was in second grade, and I remember going with her on the days where we didn't have school. And even though they were only 2 years younger than me, I just fell in love with helping the young kids. And that's kind of where my love for working with youth started as a second grader, believe it or not. And so, she was always a huge influence, and she was always encouraging me and always telling me that you can do anything you want to do in life. You just have to work hard, and you got to, focus. And I wasn't always the best at that in school. I was one of those students that did just enough to make sure I was eligible to play basketball. But
all roads lead to basketball.
But nonetheless, she never let up, and she always pushed and said, education is very important, which it is. And so that part of my parenting is what I helped to instill in my son. And fortunately, he liked school more than I did, because I did not like school.
And thank you for sharing that, because it makes a lot of sense when we have those parents that inspire us, and sometimes it can even be our parents inspire us because it's like, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. Whatever reason, it might be that, I want to inspire because, she's the best in me, or no, I'm going to prove you wrong, and whatever it may be, but it can get that that fire in our bellies going. And I love that kind of thing that happens because you see so many of the stories and people that I have shared, for our service heroes. A lot of it comes from their youth. You mentioned Lauren Michael Harris, and a lot of the reason that he is who he is, and he co-created the Next Impactor, is because of also his youth. It's the flip story, yet that he ended up with a speech that had millions of hits, I believe. That he talks about all the mothers that he had and his experiences growing up, yet those experiences made him who he is today, and how he helps so many others and inspires so many others. And so I just want to say thank you to all the parents and mentors again out there today, because this is a period of time that we can actually make a huge flip, right? We can have that. Many people are using that word pivot. We can pivot to a much greater and better understanding going forward in multiple different ways, but if we work together and have that the understanding that there are many that are out there, whatever reason, that have something to offer, and listening, like you said, to our kids, but also listening to those that right now are saying, hey, I've got something to say, I've got something to share. Don't assume what it's going to be, just listen to me. That comes back into the whole degree and your whole way of looking at life, and what your banner is behind you too, because I'd love to go there with like what your friend was saying. I mean, I pulled so many of your different quotes, and I could just keep going because I pulled so many. Only I can change my life. No one can do it for me. And Carol Burnett, it's on your page. To be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. Nelson Mandela. You have some that are your own quotes. You have some that a wide spectrum of them. Yet what they all, to me, were saying is, be willing to find out who you are, and be good with it, and then make each day a better day for yourself and also those around you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as I was growing up, and part of the reason why I got into coaching is growing up, I gave myself a hard time for not being perfect. And I always wanted to please other people. I felt like I had to be perfect to please other people. And so it was just kind of one of those things where, how can I help other people in a way that I understand their pain, and also look at the pain that I had growing up. And I still to this day can't really pinpoint where it came from, but I always had this feeling of not being enough and not, being accepted, which was ridiculous because I always had tons of friends. And, I'm, even to this day, like, I don't know where it came from, but I do know what it's like to be, picked on, ostracized. I remember when I was in middle school, I had a situation where there was this girl who liked me, and I just didn't like her back. I mean, there's nothing wrong with her. I just didn't like her in that way. And so she got upset with me, and she called me the monkey. So making a play on my name. So she said, well, forget you, the monkey. And this guy, so I was in 6th grade at the time. She was in 8th grade. And this other 8th grade guy heard, and he just belted out the loudest laugh. Ah, ha, 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 she called you the monkey. Ah. And he just, like, I would never forget that laugh. Like, I'm okay, but it's like, I would never forget that. And it's, funny looking back at it. But, so it's like, okay, in that moment, not a big deal. Okay, whatever. It is what it is. This will be done. Wasn't done. Next day, get on the bus. She called you the monkey. And then when we got to school, he's telling, and this was a small school, so there was one classroom for each grade. It was a K-12 school. So we got to school. Guess what? She called him the monkey. She called him the monkey. And from 6th grade all the way till 8th grade, every single day, I had kids calling me the monkey every day. You know, for whatever reason, some days it would be, you know, I said something to piss them off, or somebody pissed them off, and so they wanted to get at me. But actually, I just remember that feeling of like everybody coming at you. Now I still have friends, it was just a weird thing because it wasn't that people didn't like me, but it's one of those things where hurting people hurt other people. And so, you know, that was the point where they knew I can get them with that. And so I reacted to it over and over and over, and I would try to throw names at them and all of this stuff. And then finally, at some point, I just realized that, you know what, my reaction to this is what's continuing it. So I want to stop reacting to it. And when I stopped reacting to it, it died and it went away. But I still remember that feeling of having everybody picking on me and being the butt of those insults.
Right.
And so that does, you know, carry along with you throughout time. And so I know there's other people, their situation and specifics may be different, but they're feeling that same thing of limiting beliefs, not believing in themselves, not sure if they can succeed, not sure if they're good enough for other people. Well, I want to help other people overcome that. And so that's, you know, part of the reason why I wanted to become a coach. And that's a huge reason why I emphasize my work with youth so much, because I do know what that feels like. So I can spot that youth that is, you know, ostracized and not really feeling good about himself, and speak to them in a way to where they're heard and understood that I know how you feel.
Absolutely. And these are two more from your page. To love yourself is to understand you don't need to be perfect to be good. Love that. Yeah. And what we focus on outside is a reflection of what we see inside. And I have to just say, yes, Jeremiah Knight, I'm so glad you're here. One of our service heroes, one of the most amazing guys ever. You two are awesome. Well, thank you. And yeah, I like him too. And you know, and
Thanks,
I absolutely love you, Jeremiah. Glad you're here with us. So glad you're here with us. Happy 4th of July to you, my dear. And, you know, and thank you for sharing all of that, because Damon, it really, it makes a lot of sense in what I'm seeing, in that stories will often be what helps us to understand facts, and what will also help to internalize why someone is doing what they're doing. And you sharing that story makes so much sense. And I bet there are so many adults, and even, you know, even if any adolescents are watching this right now, I want to say thank you for being here with the Service Heroes Show. We hope you are being inspired, because everything and all things are possible, and we can get through things that can hurt us. You know, it's like my mom used to say, because I was one of those real awkward kids. I mean, I had the braces and the headgear that looked like I was playing hockey every day. I couldn't go out in the sun. I was allergic to it, so they had to keep me under the, you know, the thing. And, you know, I live in Southern California, and you can't go out in the sun. Yeah. Not a good thing. That you get teased like crazy, you know, and you have the headgear and the whole thing going on. And my mom, she did, thank goodness, you know, she let me know that those words are words, and that we can get beyond them. But they still stung, they still hurt, they still, you know, and there were moments where it was like, am I, you know, and then it was like, okay, no, you have to, it, you know, that self-talk. Okay, now as an adult, it's crazy. You think you're going to grow out of that, and yet
right.
You know, like, okay, wait a minute. I know I'm here now, but I haven't quite, you know, and so you have to keep constantly telling yourself, okay, I am this. I can get through that. Right now in the COVID, right now we're shut in. We don't get to have some of the validation that we used to get to go and have maybe face to face with our friends and those things right now. And it goes back to that article that you shared, that is evergreen, with those 3 points, kind of like, it's, you know, it's okay. Change happens. Right. And we can also, the change that can happen within us, in that we can change the way, or as one of our dear friends in the Chemo Buddies for Life talks about, poopy barrel, and we talked about that a lot. When we have that poopy barrel talk going on inside us, that we can clean that out, and we can just say, okay, no more, take care of whatever that is, that's gone. I can go on with my day. I don't have to believe this self-talk too, right? I can
Right.
change it.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's a big part of everything. Like if you don't change your self-talk, I mean, it's almost impossible to, really do anything great, to really build anything of significance. And the most important thing is building that happiness in your life, because happiness is not built on the outside of us. And far too many people look for happiness on the outside, into the things that they have or how they look or things of that nature. But, true happiness is within, and what you have inside. And if you can build that up, and if you can talk to that person inside, talk to that kid inside that, still wants to say, I'm not good enough, maybe I'm too small, maybe I'm not smart enough or wise enough or pretty enough or whatever enough. You are enough. And you talk in your adult self, you talk to that inner child, and you let them know you are enough.
Mm-hmm.
And as you do that, then the outer stuff will happen, but it's got to start inside first.
I love that. And one of my favorites, Winnie the Pooh. I love him, and this is from yours too. It's nice when someone remembers small details about you, not because you always remind them, but just because they care. And that can be someone external, and it can also be internal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we can be our own Winnie the Pooh, and we can be that, that
And
one that shares
yeah,
that.
and sometimes, especially in a time like now, sometimes you have to be. And I have to say, for myself, it's been some difficulty a little bit too, because I'm as much of an introvert as I am. I'm a social introvert, so I do enjoy being around other people. So there's been some difficult times. Fortunately, with school, there's still meetings that go on. In my particular role, there's not a lot as far as the actual nuts and bolts and academics and everything that go on with my role. So I could not be on those meetings, but I choose to go to the meetings through Zoom, just for that
Mhm.
interaction, to keep that, and going to make sure I'm showing up for mastermind groups, and whatever else I can do. So whatever you can do to keep those social interactions going, do those, uh, because they're so helpful.
I'm glad you brought that up. So, like the relationships that you've built, relationships that you have with different people, like Christopher Kaysen, he says, uh, always good to hear some wisdom from you, too. Well, thank you for including me in on that. However, it's like you've been out there as a speaker, you've been on the radio shows, you've been out there with a lot of these huge influencers. You've worked with Team Jason. You've got all of this experience, and now you're here sharing it with us. And I am going to ask this because I believe that there are some that might want to hear what you have to say. It's just something that's coming to me. And Natasha, love it that you're here. Love you, my dear. One of our authors. She's just got a new book. I love it. I can't wait to read it. Um, that what, without getting too deep into this, but how do you explain right now what is happening with our country having so much about the Black Lives Matters, not and all of this, because you've got a son that's 10, and you don't live in the city, but you turn on the news anywhere, and you're hearing all this almost like a racial trying to tear apart. And that is definitely not what I'm, you're all about helping healing. We are within our organization healing through connections. And so I'd love with the fact that you've got that right there behind you also, life. Oh, bring you up, life going up right there. It's like, how do you help to navigate that?
Just helping people learn to focus on personal responsibility. And, I know it's probably not the most popular answer that people want to hear, but there's just a lot of accountability that people don't take for their actions and their behaviors or for their circumstances in life. And I think we need to get back to that and people really focusing on what is it that I can do to make sure that my life is in a better place. Now, with that, are there things going on that are unequally balanced? I believe so. Everybody doesn't believe that. I do believe so. I do believe that there are some issues with with police brutality, but the narrative that people are being hunted down in the streets, I think that's extreme. So, getting those things under control, and let's really talk about what the real issue is. Is there a problem with police brutality? Yes. And I say this to, some of my white friends all the time. Just because it doesn't end up in death doesn't mean that, police brutality isn't happening at a pretty high rate. But with that, we can't take things and blow things up bigger than what they are. And that's a big reason why a lot of situations can't get resolved, because we're not looking at things accurately. So I think really focusing and really tempering our emotions and looking at things as they actually are. Don't make them less than what they are, which I believe there's a segment of the population that's making the problem less than what it is. And we can't make it bigger than what it is. But let's really try to focus and look at things as they are. And then everybody take personal responsibility for doing your part. And, again, what I've told to my white friends, I don't like this whole idea of having people apologize and do all of that stuff. I think it's ridiculous. I had a friend of mine text me shortly after George Floyd's murder was broadcast to us all over the world. And he's like, yeah, I'm, sorry. I was like, dude, why are you apologizing to me? You didn't do anything. I said, only thing I ask of you is be conscious and aware of what's going on. And if you see something wrong, speak up about it. And that's all we really need to do. If you see something, speak up about it. And that's just kind of where I am with the whole situation. I really want to focus on personal responsibility. In order for Black community to grow, we've got to stop selling to ourselves that we can't succeed or that there's something stopping us. Here I am, middle age. I'm 45, so I'm not exactly a spring chicken, but just had an article published in a global magazine, which is owned by an African woman who lives in Australia, and that connection was made through a Black male who's my coach, who's also a homosexual. Mm-hmm. The opportunities are there. We've got to work, and we've got to be, make sure that we're pouring into our communities, those who are making it big. Make sure we're going back to our communities, pouring into our communities, and where those instances of injustice happen, let's address those and focus it. But let's not make it a bigger issue, because what that does is it isolates people and it turns people off from wanting to listen. It's one thing to say, hey, you know what, this right here, this was a problem. Can we address this? Than to say the whole system is out of whack and we just need to tear it down. It just leads to more trouble than solutions, in my opinion.
And thank you for answering that and so responsibly and so well, because again, you make it, your writing and your verbiage in a live interview really just makes it, and so someone can understand. And what I'm thinking right now is, I had said that I'm a student of history, and I'm thinking, you look back even in history, and right now it is this situation. Back in World War II, it was, like my family, my maiden name was Meixner, and I had family that was ostracized because they had Holtz or Meixner, or they were with German last names, yet they had been in the country for, hundreds of years, in some cases, and yet they were being questioned for it. It's whatever the elements are at the moment in time. You can have people that are prejudging and looking at something and saying,
Yeah,
wait a minute, and like your friend, and thank you for sharing that story too, because there is getting the facts are so important. And then I love the way you talked about with talking with our kids about what's happening in the pandemic, and having to be age appropriate and everything. It goes right back into that, being appropriate and finding the facts, getting an awareness, being aware. And if you don't
yeah,
know, like you had said before, call someone that does. Find someone that does know these things,
absolutely.
and then you'll feel much more empowered. Your family will feel more empowered, and we will be able to go and heal our country, heal our world, because truly we are all one family. We're a family, all of us together. We just need to find a way to be able to
Yeah,
make that
and
family, not
and
have the
it goes
family
back.
reunion, have the family stories. Oh, remember that silly Aunt Gladys? She was crazy, that one, right?
Yeah, but it all goes back to what I said before, is the listening part. I think that's the biggest killer in all of this, because there are a lot of Black people that are in a lot of pain,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
and
yeah.
and the big part of the issue is there are others who just they won't listen. You know, numbers and statistics say one thing, but people's real life experiences, they account for something, and we can't ignore that. Just as the person who is unaware, it's like we can't get mad at people for being unaware of something that they don't see on a day-to-day basis. So we sit and we take the time, communicate with them, and as long as everybody can sit together and talk and listen for understanding, then we can solve the problems that we have. But if everybody's just, oh, this is how it is, my mind's made up, I don't care what you say, we're going to continue to bump heads. And that goes whether political, racial, sexual orientation, all of those things.
Right. We're getting to the top of the hour, but I want to give you an opportunity to. I'm going to drop myself from the line for a moment and let you give a nugget, some kind of an inspirational thought, something that you're feeling like you'd like to leave everybody with, and then I'll come back and we'll close out the show. Okay.
All right. Thank you. So, the thing that I just want to leave out there, and you've heard me talk a lot about it, is just really taking the time to do a couple of things. One is really focus on yourself. Really take the time to learn about you. What are the things that are really great about you? Focus on those, build those. What are the things that you can do to improve yourself? Now's a great time. We're slowly coming out of the I don't want to say quarantine, but the lockdowns or shutdowns or whatever for COVID. But while we still have time, really take some time to focus on getting to know who you are, the ins and out of you. You Inc. You are the boss. You are the CEO of you. Get to learn yourself. Work on work on continuing to build the strengths that you have, and then to work on improving the areas that are not so great. And then with in regards to connecting with other people, just really focus on listening and listening to understand. There's a lot of us who have a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, uh, a lot of help and support that we can give to other people. Part of the reason why that may not be going through is because people need to know that you care. And the best way to show that you care is to listen, and listen for understanding. Because as much information as we have, as much knowledge and wisdom as we have, if you're trying to cram something down someone's throat, they're not going to listen. They're not going to want to hear. There's an old saying that says, a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. So trying to force somebody into something never works, not in the long run. So take the time with your kids, with your spouse, with your coworkers. Really take the time to really sit and listen to what other people are going through, what their experiences are, And then together we can come up with solutions on how we can have a better world.
Beautiful. Thank you for being today's service hero, Damon. So as we close today's show, the Service Hero Show, 365 Days of Awesome, celebrate success through service. You are a service hero. We have determined that. You are a man that sees things in such an amazing, beautiful way. You have also a clear understanding and able to share that clearly through your writing, through your words, and through your heart. That is such a gift. You as a father too are inspiring. A service hero bonus, I'll tell you. And the fact that you are having your son do the things that you are, and now he is not feeling like you are having him do it. He now is engaged and he wants to do it. That is huge. That right there is a bonus service hero trait. I just want to say thank you for being here today on this Independence Day weekend show on July the 5th, 2020. You are an amazing man, truly an impactor, a global.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
All right, everyone. Tonight, within the closed group for Chemo Buddies for Life, it is game night. And yes, Christopher Kaysen and Brooke Curran are the hosts of the chat. Meet us at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern in the closed group, Chemo Buddies for Life. Go to the group if you haven't joined. Ask to join. 2 things. What takes place there stays there. It is a safe environment. So we require you to help us to keep it that way. Other than that, we share humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a lot of love. See you there tonight. Bye, everyone.